You are listening to Rubber Minute, where words do remain.
The conflict between the Myanmar government and the Kachin Independence Organization, together with its armed wing, the Kachin Independence Army, have driven many families in the Kachin state or the northern part of the neighboring Shan state to flee their home in Myanmar. Seng Moon's family is among those who fled from Kachin in 2011, only to scrape a living in one of the camps for the internally displaced. When Seng Moon was 16, her sister-in-law introduced her to a job as a cook in China's neighboring Yunnan province, with a wage and a life beyond what the slums could offer. She reluctantly accepted the job and was brought away. In the car, Seng Moon was drugged and fell asleep. When she woke up, she found herself tied up and abandoned with a Chinese family, where she was locked up, only to be told that she was married off to the man of the household. Her quote-unquote husband was abusive, but she had no means to escape. Soon after, she fell pregnant and gave birth to a son. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Right the Wrongs. Every Wednesday and Friday, Right the Wrongs raises public awareness on pressing human rights issues and creates an incubator of activism. In this episode, we are discussing the trafficking of brides across China's northwest border. Seng Moon managed to escape and return to Myanmar with her son 2 years later, which is an unusual case among the 37 trafficking survivors for the report on bride trafficking by Human Rights Watch in 2019. She was lucky because a Kachin woman she met in the market gave her 1,000 yuan, or roughly $159, to help her return home. A study by the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health and Kachin Women's Association Thailand estimated that about 21,000 women and girls from northern Myanmar were forced into marriage in just one province of China from 2013 to 2017. These women and girls are usually tricked by brokers who promise well-paid employment across the border in China, which is a plausible risk to take given the economic instability that displaced Burmese people are subjected to. Once trafficked to China, they are sold for around $3,000 to $13,000 to Chinese families seeking a daughter-in-law for their adult son. Such brokers in the bride trade could be complete strangers operating for profit, but sometimes they are family relatives or friends, like the case for Seng Moon. They prey on the vulnerability of young displaced women in Kachin who are often the sole breadwinners for their family, while their fathers, uncles, and brothers are recruited to take part in the armed conflict. Meanwhile, years of single-child policy and the disproportionate preference for boys have distorted the female-to-male population ratio in China. The gender gap among the population aged 15 to 29 has risen since 1987, and an estimated 30 to 40 million women are missing from their expected 50% population share. This gender imbalance is leaving many Chinese men without wives. Due to the expectation that the husbands provide economic stability to the family, poorer bachelors in rural China have a significantly worse marital prospect. This can be observed in the less developed regions of the provinces along the southwestern borders, where the mountainous terrain had made economic connectivity and labor mobility more difficult. Many families thus resorted to buying a trafficked bride from the neighboring countries like Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, and sometimes even Pakistan. The trafficked brides go through unimaginable physical and emotional trauma. According to Human Rights Watch, many of them are drugged on the way and are usually locked away after arriving at the buyers' houses and raped. Many have no means of communication with the outside world due to language barriers. It is usually demanded by the buyer's family that they produce a child, and although most of them attempt to escape, very few could escape with their children like Seng Moon did. The unavoidable separation from their children is the price to pay for their freedom, which adds yet another source of great pain and trauma. Meanwhile, when the trafficked women and girls escape and run to the Chinese police, They were sometimes jailed for immigration violations rather than being treated as victims of human trafficking. Repatriations of the victims to Myanmar is also done in a chaotic manner, as sometimes survivors are left stranded at an arbitrary point of release across the border. Families that lose their girls to traffickers and brokers often find it very difficult to receive help and support from law enforcement officers on both sides of the border. Most are turned away by the police when they seek help to look for their girls. And so few services and resources are accessible to them in such situations that most of them give up on the search in the end. Survivors, on the other hand, often fear telling their stories due to the possibilities of retaliation from the brokers or the buyers' families and the social stigma. When Myanmar authorities do step in to target the traffickers, they usually can only trace and arrest initial brokers within Myanmar itself and not the rest of the network in China. Moreover, there is a lack of legal protection against human trafficking in China because the market of such trafficked bride is typically not targeted. Because the law only punishes the act of trafficking and not buying, most buyers can walk free even if the brokers are arrested. Moreover, the dowry culture sometimes also confuses the purchase of a bride as a common social practice of gifting the bride's family with money, just like in a normal Chinese wedding. The armed conflict in Kachin and northern Shan states has largely escaped international attention, despite 2018 findings by the United Nations that the Myanmar military has committed war crimes and crimes against humanity there. The atrocities against Rohingya people deservedly seized headlines, but the women and girls of Kachin and northern Shan states remain largely invisible victims. Too many of them are trapped by both the disruptive displacement in Myanmar and the destructive denial of women's reproductive rights in China, until governments and NGOs start to collaborate across the borders to put the illegal and immoral bride trade on the agenda. More disadvantaged girls and women will continue to fill in for the gender gap in the Chinese market of marriage. That's the end of today's episode. Feel free to engage with us on Facebook and Instagram, and join us for further discussions on our Telegram group, or leave us a comment at theverbpermanentpodcast@gmail.com. This episode was written and produced by Tanfei and brought to you by Right the Wrongs and The Verb Permanent. The next episode of Right the Wrongs will air on Wednesday. You can find the program wherever you find your podcasts, bringing you detailed updates on pressing human rights issues. Till next time, take care.